Astrid Artin-Loussikian feels incomplete. She was born in France as the granddaughter of 4 survivors of the Armenian Genocide. She says she has inherited that trauma.
À l'adolescence, lorsqu'on se questionne sur
As a teenager, I began to ask questions about my background. My grandfather had always told me about the village where he grew up. It was a haven of peace, until it was wiped off the map, just like the Armenians. They were left with a feeling of injustice, of having suffered collectively. This has been passed on to me. Part of my heritage has been cut out.
Actuellement, je me sens amputée d'une partie de mon histoire.
Her grandparents came to Marseille in the 1920s. They counted themselves among the lucky ones, compared to the more than 1 million Armenians who were murdered by Ottoman Turks. But they also suffered much hardship.
Ils étaient 50, ils se sont retrouvés que 2. Il va malheureusement subir la déportation.
Only 2 of the 50 members of my granddad's family survived. He was taken to a concentration camp. He told me how he urinated into his sister's hands so that she would have something to drink. But she died too. He spent the next 4 years wandering from country to country, ending up in Marseille in 1924. My grandmother's family were more fortunate. They managed to flee, but they lost everything.
Like many Armenians, they came to Marseille because France was known to take in refugees and because there was work.
Astrid has made it her job to find out more about the past. She's a history teacher and works as a volunteer at an NGO that collects documents about the Armenian survivors. But for her, this is also a fight for justice.
Cela me permet de construire mon identité.
This helps me complete my identity. Through collecting other people's memories, I find the missing pieces of my story. But I'm also an activist. This was mass murder. We have a collective history. We must gather evidence of what happened, especially since Turkey still denies that there was a genocide.
On est obligé d'accumuler des preuves.
About 30 other countries have recognized the Armenian genocide. France's move to establish an official day of commemoration is good news, she says, but more needs to be done.
Pour moi, c'est une avancée parce qu'elle va donner un cadre, je l'ai dit, légal.
This is progress, as it gives the commemoration ceremonies a legal framework. But France and other European countries need to go further and create laws to make the denial of the Armenian genocide illegal.
Continue à dire qu'il n'y a pas eu de génocide. Donc aujourd'hui en France, quelqu'un pourrait se
It's incredible that still goes unpunished.
Et ne serait pas poursuivi par la justice.
Even such additional measures wouldn't fully satisfy Astrid. Only if and when Turkey finally recognizes the Armenian genocide will she be able to find some peace of mind.
And let's now go to our correspondent Dorian Jones in Istanbul. Dorian, this is such a sensitive issue in Turkey. Any signs that Turkey will recognize the Armenian genocide?
Absolutely not. In fact, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, in an announcement, said that those who claim there was a genocide have no interest in history. And this is all because Turkey steadfastly argues that there was no genocide, that the Armenians were killed, but they also say many Turks were killed in what they claim was a civil war. They also go on to say that many Turks across Turkey's Ottoman Empire in the Balkans also suffered mass atrocities, which were akin to genocide as well. They say this was a very bloody time of history where all sides of society were affected. But also there is a deep concern in Turkey that isn't just about history. There are fears that if the Armenian genocide is internationally recognized, it would open the door to Turkey facing vast reparation claims from around the world and even claims on Turkish territory. So this is a very live and what many perceive in Turkey as a threat to Turkey itself.
Now, are there any public commemoration ceremonies planned among Armenians living in Turkey today?
Yes, there have been. In fact, they're going on throughout Istanbul. Small numbers of Turkey's small Armenian community, along with many Turks as well, have joined these commemorations to mark the events that had started today. They've been meeting at places where the first Armenians were rounded up and held. And this all started around 10 years ago. And it did start under when Erdogan was prime minister. It was a time when there was a hope that Turkey could finally look back on its history as a time of looking at what happened, removing the politics, removing the diplomacy. But those hopes are slowly now closing, given the fact that now Erdogan's minority coalition member is the National Action Party, which are among the strongest opponents to any claims to recognising Armenian genocide. So these commemorations now, they are continuing, but part of a process that it seems to be possibly coming to an end in the present political climate.
Right, Dorian Jones in Istanbul, thank you very much for that.